Hey everyone, it is LCid932 on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. We are here for episode 9 of Married at First Sight Austin, season 19. And I gotta tell you, this one, wait for the end because we have an announcement. Okay, if you didn't know by the thumbnail, somebody is expecting a baby. Okay. So we see that it's 22 days until the decision day. We see Derek and Megan. They get an intimacy box, okay? It seems like most of the couples did get that. And, she says, don't take it out. Don't take that, Vi to the Breda out. And he takes it all the way out. He says he's never used toys. Now, sir, you told us you're well traveled. You've dated all over the world. And you have never used an adult toy. I find that a little unbelievable. Maybe not the ones in the box. But hey, I don't know your business like that. Will and Brittany, she says she's never used toys. What is going on here? There is a lacking of education up in here. So she says, well, what have you used? And he takes out a lot of things. And she's like, wait a minute. You took out all that you've used? And her jaw hit the floor because he took out a lot of things from that box. Chad and Belinda, she asked him, about one of the toys. And he said, hey, this is a zipple clamp. And he puts it on his ears. He said it doesn't really hurt, And she says she's not into toys because she's already done that. It was a phase. Belinda, you're concerning me. Now I wonder what your daughter's going to think about these toys, okay? So Chad said, hey, we are mature, but we could still have some fun, okay? But, you use them all, Belinda, but you didn't know about clamps. I'd like to know what you used. What was in that phase you were in? Okay. I have questions. Then we learn it's 21 days till decision. We see Belinda and Chad again. And she feels like he cradles her. He provides her with security and a nice soft place to land. They're out at I believe a brewery. And she talks about her small town and he lived in a big city. And y'all, he lived in Baton Rouge in Louisiana, but I'm laughing because he said he moved to, I believe it's Rhode Island, and that was his first time encountering snow, and he was so excited until he had to shovel that thing. And I know what you mean, Chad. So she shares that her granddad is the reason she's into drinks, chips with pickles. Because Chad said that's her favorite snack in the evenings when they are watching a movie. And it's because when she would go around with her grandfather, he was doing event planning. That was the snack he would have her and her cousins, he would get for them. Tell them, go back there, get drinks, chips, and a pickle. But y'all, we also learned she don't know what direction. Because when he asked her, your small town, is it north or south of Corpus Christi? She's like, I don't know. I don't know what is north, south, east, or west. And I said, wait a minute. How could we not? And I know your kids were doing stuff. They didn't do Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. But hey, they laugh and they play Jenga. And I'm guessing they enjoyed the drinks, but they did not give us any impression about the place. Jalen and Josh, Dr. P and Pastor Cal come visit. And they talk about how he lied about unfollowing the ex. Now, y'all, if you look at their posture, his hand is on her leg. She is sitting very straight with good posture. She ain't touching him. Her hand ain't nowhere near him. It is clasped on her lap. Josh does explain the situation. Jalen said it was an unnecessary lie and she struggles with the trust. Dr. Pia says in the past dating, you can run. Now that you're married, what do you need to do to work on trusting him and not be hypervigilant? And to Josh, Dr. Pia said, what actions are you doing that may trigger her? Jalen says she can't forgive him, but, the experts aren't buying it. The way you said it, Jalen, I ain't buying it either. Then Pastor Cal says you got to release your judgment to make it work. Do not hold this over his head. Now, Jalen said, hey, it's the little lies that lead to big lies. And Dr. Pia says, he is a yes man and he is basically trying to appease you in the moment. And that's why he lied about it. Now, Jalen says, honestly, that she doesn't want to do festivals at all. She wants to do shows, but she doesn't want to do those days-long festivals like Burning Man. I said, girl, whoo. She said no camping. She barely hikes. She's not into all that outdoor stuff he's into. He says, what is a healthy medium that would look like? What would she like? And he loves doing those things. That is the cornerstone of who he is. And Jalen said, if she doesn't like them, will this drive him away? And she said she would do them to appease him in the moment. So, Jalen, you're doing the same thing Josh is doing. You're doing the same thing, saying, hey, I'm okay with it, when you're not okay with it. But we do get a flashback. We do get a flashback where she said, what if I'm not into that? And he says it's not a big deal. But we're going to put a pin in that. But Josh says he wants the feeling of having shared experiences that they both enjoy. And they need to design their marriage and their activities to what they can both, work on. And you don't have to do it with her, Josh. You could go to Burning Man with your friends. That could be a week away with your friends. But I understand you want that meaningful relationship where you have shared things. What if you don't like his spin class? That's okay. That's okay. Now we go to Megan and Derek. They go on a cold plunge, and she admits that she said, I love you first. Okay? Now, she also says you need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and realizes, how much that is, words that she needs to take to heart. Now, he goes first, and he stays in for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. She's like, hey, I'm going to beat that. And she did, y'all. She goes in for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and he is impressed. Now, he does say he is all in, and she is his person for life. I guess all it takes is a cold plunge, huh? Josh and Jalen, the experts, leave, and he understands that they need to find what gives him the same freedom as the festivals. And she hopes that he's not really upset. And she says, hey, give it a chance with him. Come to the festival with me to give it a chance. And I'm hearing him trying to convince her all over again. Dude, I understand, but don't. She already said she's done festivals and it ain't her thing. Let it go. So he says, well, I do your cycling, I do your spin class and stuff. And she's like, 45 minutes and 7 days are two different things. And, he asked her to stop talking over him. And now we start nitpicking. And he says, hey, would she have regrets after a lifetime that she didn't go do these things with him? And she says she feels concerned. He said it wasn't a problem. And this is where we saw that clip where he said it's not a big deal for him if she doesn't want to do the festivals. Now, he says now he realizes that it was actually really important. And he compares it to if he stops being in her spin class, or if he asks her to stop being an instructor. She says, if you ask me to stop doing what I enjoy, this won't work. He says he does not want to be interrupted when he's speaking to her. And he feels she's getting defensive. Well, you getting a little defensive too, Josh. Come on now. You get a little defensive. So he feels like they need to find something they're both passionate about, but they're two different people. He gets upset when she rolls her eyes at him, and he gets snippy. Don't roll your eyes at me. And I'm like, Jalen, you're gonna have to curb those eyes, girl, and look at him, or look down at the dog, or close your eyes and roll it so you don't see it rolling. So she says she's not interested in the festivals. And he says giving up is hard, and he starts to tear up. And I'm like, she didn't ask you to give it up. She says give up asking her to go. She ain't going. Go with your wig buddies, or is that Derek? Go with your wig bros and have fun at the festival. Leave her out of it. I think that was Derek with the wig bros. Anyway, she says she doesn't want him to give it up. He doesn't have to do that. And he wants to find something together, because the festivals for him builds a strong community. I understand now. You have a community of people. Y'all enjoy something together. He says maybe this is because he didn't have his mom, that he's constantly looking for a community. Understood, Josh. I really am understanding now that you're working through this. Now she says, let's work on finding our community. Find something we can enjoy. It doesn't have to be on a big scale like the festivals, but something that will give him the good feeling, and something that will be there more than just a few times a year. Now he agrees. And I said, Jalen, this was wonderful. I love this suggestion, because yes, he has that high for the festivals, and what happens when it's done? There's no place for him to go get that good feeling again right away. We see Brittany. She takes Will to her gym and do a complete workout. And she appreciates that he's coming outside of his comfort zone. And Will says he's trying to keep up with her. Chad is at the nail salon with Belinda, and he's falling asleep in the chair. I understand, Chad. I understand. Now, Are they doing any more things that he likes? Because I'm seeing what he's doing, what Belinda likes. He's not into beer. They went to the brewery. He ain't doing them mani-pedis, but we went there. What are we doing again? Because they did the archery that one time. I'm not seeing more. They did fishing on the honeymoon, archery. I don't see anything more. Let's keep an eye on that. Pat and Rhonda, they go to her dad's burial site and he's driving and she's talking. She's talking all about her childhood, okay? And he said he's trying to drive and he cannot really process everything. She's telling him dates. Her dad passed when she was this old. She was with her uncle. She was doing this. She gets testy because he's not remembering what she's saying while he's driving properly. He's trying to pay attention to the road and we see him, but she's like realizing he's not hearing her. And she shares, her cousin and her found, I guess, their uncle's adult magazines in the house one time in the closet. And he said, we have that in common. I found my dad's in his trunk. And she cut him off. She's like, I'm sharing about my family. I'm sharing about me. Basically, she don't want to hear about you, okay? He's trying to connect with you, Rhonda. And she just sees it as cutting her off. Now, this going to turn into him no longer wanting to share his life and his life stories. Because when is it the right time for him to share his, Rhonda? Please tell me. Because I don't hear it. I don't hear that it's the right time for Pat to speak anymore. So, when they go to the burial site and she's like, would you like to talk to my dad? And I'm like, Pat, what am I supposed to say? I don't know this person. And I just barely heard a rundown of your life when we were driving over here. So Pat said the most polite thing. He's like, it's nice to meet you. Now, whether they edited it out or not, it was at least nice of him to say, nice to meet you. Now, Rhonda, almost rolls her eyes and asks for some time alone. And she's like telling her dad, this is so hard. Now, Pat says he is doing the best he can to give her space because she was already in a heightened emotional state telling her stories on the way there. Now, he does miss when she said her dad died. And he asked her again, like, when did he pass? And she gets mad about it. You're not paying attention to me. You're not listening. And he said he cannot process it all quickly. He has to ask many times because he doesn't get things the first time. I understand, Pat. I'm with you, Pat. I'm not going to collect and retain and regurgitate stuff that I'm now hearing for the first time. And while I'm driving, I ain't trying to process anything while driving any more than lyrics and directions because we are going to be jamming to music on the way to wherever we're going. So he does park at a mall, okay? He says he's not good. He's frustrated. He says when she scolds him, she doesn't recognize he's doing the best he can. She scolds him, she shuts him down and makes him want to pull back. And it feels like she always has him under evaluation. Now, Rhonda does apologize and she needs to feel seen and heard. And she struggles that with him, he doesn't make her feel that. She does want grace too when she does make these mistakes. And Pat says he feels like she is testing him. And it's not the first time. And, Rhonda goes on to say she doesn't feel heard in the present moment. This isn't the first time. And I'm like, he's driving. He's paying attention to the road. Paying attention to you is secondary to your safety while driving. Ron, I'm going to need you to get out your head. Get out your head. So Pat does say he recognizes and that he is growing with her. He recognizes all that she says, but he doesn't need the scolding. And she appreciates that he is sharing. And y'all, they kiss and they feel better. At least y'all feel better. I don't feel better about it because I don't think this is going to change right away. We see it's 36 days of marriage and 20 days till decision. Okay? Brittany and Will, Pastor Cal and Dr. P visit. And Will says he feels they're in a good place. He likes Brittany. She feels like there's a block and she felt that they should be in love by now. Are we comparing to the other people, Brittany? Okay. Will says to the experts, we ain't got no issues. And Brittany's like, well, here's the thing. I don't know where he stands. And Will says, if today was decision day, it would be a yes. But he doesn't know what's going to happen 30 days from now. Okay? He understands it means uncertainty, but this is his truth. And yes, Will, it is the truth. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but you ain't got to say it. Okay? Know when to hold them, know when to fold them, and know when to hush. Okay? So Brittany says, so any small thing she does can cause him to have doubt, and she's walking on eggshells, and maybe that will be the thing that pushes him away. Now, Will said he had no idea she felt like this, like she was walking on eggshells, and, he didn't know that she did not feel comfortable telling him these things. He didn't realize that she was not secure around him. So, hey, they're like, okay, if you're all secure, have you all talked about the future? I said, not really. So they're like, okay, let's talk about it now in front of the expert. Let's talk about it now. So Pastor Cal said, where y'all gonna live? Will said, we can live at your house, but I'm keeping my apartment. Brittany says it sounds like his mind is already made up. Pastor Cal says, hey, he's not letting go of his place. Do you understand what that sounds like? He said, yes, I understand what it sounded like. Now, he asked Brittany, do you understand what that sounds like? She's like, I'm still processing when he said, when Pastor Cal said, why didn't you say something that you're uncomfortable with what he said? They are both overthinking. They're both overthinking, okay? Will, you can say, hey, we can stay at your place. Everything works out perfectly. We rent it out to someone, and that could be a stream of income for our family. She needs to hear you say our and us and included. I know what you meant. You're going to keep your place, but you could say what plans you have for those places. You can't just stop there in that moment, okay? So he says his place is only 7 minutes from the airport and it's close to downtown. If they go to concerts or if they're in the city, it's an option for them to stay. Now, Dr. Pia says, yes, that makes sense. But realize, that you said it in an abrasive manner. And he said, yes, with no emotions. So he's getting there. Pastor Care says, you're not using inclusive language. It should be our place. Okay? And Dr. Pia shows him, Will, you speak to rebut. Yes, you do, Will. Will says he apologized and needs her to tell him so he can be there with her in the moment with his words. So basically he's saying, hey, tell me when my words aren't conveying what you need to hear or not conveying enough. Dr. Pia says you're both protecting yourself and the other person. Bring your walls down, okay? Pastor Cal said, let whatever happens, but bring your walls down. Now, Brittany starts tearing up and she says she didn't think that she was guarded. She said something is missing and maybe it's because she has her walls up. Now, when she starts crying, Will pulls her in closer into his arms. And both experts show her that when her walls come down, Will pulls her closer. I don't know if that's really the thing. I understand what they're saying, but it's like, does she have to cry to be pulled in closer? Do we need the tears to pull in closer? I don't like that as a catalyst of pulling in closer, but I understand what y'all are saying. She took the chance to open up and share, and he pulled her closer, okay? Now, they also tell her Will may not be good with his words, but he is good with his actions. And I think she really got that part. Megan and Derek, Pastor Cal and Dr. Pia visit. They realize their communication styles feed off of each other, and they can be triggering each other. It's just different, okay? But they understand it now. They can put their egos in check and meet in the middle. He has said I love you to Megan, and it was days ago when they were in private. No cameras, okay? It dropped all concerns she had, and gave her security. All concerns, Megan? I have a few still. But anyway, I'm watching an edited show. So he keeps confirming his love for her, and even in conflict, they can find their way back to each other now through that love. I appreciate that for y'all, but I still have concerns. Too many concerns. All of a sudden, it's peaches and roses. Either we missed a whole lot from editing or you're lying. Okay? Rhonda and Pat, they're sitting there at the counter sharing a pizza. And she realizes her biggest insecurity is not being chosen. And she thinks it comes from her dad. Her dad wanted a boy, at least one boy, but he ended up with 2 girls. And her sister became that boy in her dad's eyes. He chose her sister. He took her hunting. She was always, fixing things with him. And they were always going to other places. And she didn't feel seen or heard. She also shares that her toxic relationships also told us she was too loud, she was just too much, too extra, and so she wasn't chosen. So Pat says it makes sense, and he wants her to feel heard, and they are working hard together, and that's all they really can do. That was a great conversation. I'm liking Pat and Rhonda's conversations, but I still have concerns. We see Brittany and Will. They go to her aunt's house. The cousin is hilarious. Brittany, whoever your cousin is, she's hilarious. She is throwing rice behind them, y'all. They're like, what are you doing? She's like, we're throwing rice. But they're at her aunt's house. As I say, that's where the family usually gather. And he's the first man to meet the family. Now, Mom and Will sit down and they share how she does little quirky things that can be annoying. And Will is very open in this, y'all. He's very jovial with her family. He's very charismatic. And I wonder if Will does best in a group setting versus one-on-one. I wonder if he feels too much pressure and he's too in his head. It's something to ponder. But she is also opening up, and Will recognizes that. Now, the aunt says, I ain't never seen you kiss nobody. Could y'all kiss? So they do, and she goes and announces it to the whole house, and the whole house comes over to see them kiss again. And then they're like, ooh, he putting his hands on her neck. Ooh, that's a good kiss. That family is hilarious. Brittany, I need you to chillax like your family, okay? This maybe can work, but I need you to relax, okay? Then we see Megan and Derek. They say they were not trying, but this certainly happened. They took 2 tests, and they were both positive. Megan is pregnant. Derek says he is committed to making her comfortable and happy in every way. And y'all, that is the end of the episode. Now, we kind of figured based on the voice of the person, that it was Megan that was expecting. I wasn't expecting them to tell us so early in the season. Now we're going to see what's going to happen. What happens when they share to the other couples? That is going to be a bombshell. But you know what? I hope you'll be here with me for the next one. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.